let's look through 4 different areas that could be contributing to a lower diastasis. 1, what happens when you go to breathe? When you go to inhale, are you able to get this nice 360 expansion and feel your breath go down into your pelvic floor? Or does all your breath go out into your belly with no rib cage movement and no pelvic floor movement? When you go to exhale, do your ribs come down and in as well as a flattening of your lower abs? Or is the tendency for your ribs to come down and in and then dominate and pooch out those lower abs, constantly putting stress and strain through that diastasis? Along those same lines, what happens when you go to do a small crunch or a posterior pelvic tilt? Can those lower abs stay nice and flat, or do they tend to pooch out? This can indicate, again, an imbalance in our abs as well as what muscles we're using to create that posterior pelvic tilt. And maybe we need to work on finding more proximal hamstrings to make that action happen so that we're not so dominant with our rectus muscle to pull that pelvis into a posterior pelvic tilt, so we can find those lower TAs in a more balanced way and create that balance throughout our whole core. What happens when you go to hip hinge squat or hip thrust? Are you able to keep a neutral pelvis, or is your tendency to fall into more of an anterior pelvic tilt? This is going to put, again, those lower abs in a constantly lengthened position and put stress through that diastasis. So coming back to finding some more proximal hamstrings to help with that pelvis positioning, and then making sure when you go to hinge that you're actually lengthening through those glutes and not lengthening through that hamstring, which is going to put you back into that anterior pelvic tilt. When you go to hip thrust and bridge, are you able to keep that neutral position, or do you tend to drive up and use your back to come up, again, pushing you into that anterior pelvic tilt? Instead, we may be able to find that proximal hamstring and glute max to keep that pelvis tucked under throughout the movement. Then you also want to take a look at the balance between your adductors and your glute med. For some of us, we might need to push a little bit more and find more glute med. And for others, we might need to pull a little bit more and find more adductors. During pregnancy, our pelvis turns into a kind of a splayed out position, which can put length in our lower abs from side to side. Working on this pelvis balance between the inside and outside can help your pelvis get more in a turned in position and shorten the distance between those lower abs, so it's easier to contain and create tension through those lower abs. So go ahead and take a look at our lower diastasis playlist and see if there's some great tips and tricks to help you take your healing to the next level.